beautiful rub route underneath between Brendan Rice and Mario Williams. Brendan Rice, the son of Jerry Rice, showing you he knows how to get skinny, gets the first down. Caleb Williams, once again, just being the point guard, delivering from the pocket. It looks like USC doesn't have that much rust.
Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
All right, Student Body Right USC podcast, Dwayne Douglas here. I want to play a little video so you can see what recruits see when they go and walk into Oregon, right? I think we look at Oregon as doom and gloom, always raining, whatever. But I'm going to show you what they see when they walk in. And then I'm going to play an interview I did with Spencer McLaughlin. He is the host of the Locked On Ducks podcast, and talk a little USC, talk a little Ducks here on the Student Body Right USC podcast. And welcome everybody to the glorious episode of the Student Body Right USC podcast, and a little bit of the Put on Raiders podcast because the Raiders picked up a Oregon Duck. I think everybody's excited about the potential center / guard that he'll play for the Raiders coming up this season. We have Spencer McLaughlin. He is the host of Locked On Ducks. The enemies that are in the building. Calm down, Trojan fans. Calm down. I just want to know, man, y'all greedy. Y'all greedy over there in Oregon, man. Like, y'all really don't leave any scholarship players for anybody else. I mean, hey, that's not.
Well, I mean, you got 85 of them down in LA. I assume they're getting used on somebody.
It's funny because people act like you guys have extra. They're like, they didn't run out yet. I mean, people was hitting my DMs. Like, they didn't run out. They didn't run out yet. No, they didn't run out yet.
Well, I mean, to their credit, Oregon is, I think, 1 or 2 over the scholarship limit right now.
Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see
Are those players going to stay on the team, though? Yes, the expectation is that they will.
Yes. They'll put on some red shirts or whatever they got to do to make that happen. But we'll start there, of course. So right there is where a friend of mine is a scout for one of the major 4 sports. I'll leave it at that. He went to Oregon to scout players, and he texted me and said, how it was one of those dreary, cold, rainy days, and he said, how the hell do schools lose players to Oregon? This weather is just unbearable. But with that being said, Dan Lanning is doing something that's really special out there because players are flocking, and they're in on pretty much every player. So can you talk about that a little bit? How that Oregon machine keeps going and going?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really started with Mario Cristobal, even more than Chip Kelly. Obviously, Chip, put Oregon into the national spotlight in a way that no coach, not even Mike Bellotti, had done before. The Bellotti did just so many great things for the program in the 90s and early 2000s, and was the head coach of a national championship caliber team in 2007. And that was a great game against USC at Autzen Stadium. And unfortunately, Dennis Dixon got hurt and that season got derailed. But, the recruiting angle, Oregon's always been good because if you're going to be a top, 10, 20 program in college football, you got to recruit at some level. You got to be at least, inside the top 40 to just have players who are big enough, fast enough, strong enough. But Mario Cristobal kind of reset the expectations for what's possible at Oregon from a recruiting standpoint. And Dan Lanning has only raised the bar, which is pretty impressive. Cristobal had the highest ranked recruiting class ever in 2021, which was he would have just finished up his third season at the helm. Going into his third season, Dan Lanning has brought in now the highest ranked recruiting class and highest rated in Oregon history. And he's just done a really spectacular job attacking the entire country. Oregon pulls players from
Yep.
everywhere because they have to. There's not a lot of blue
Yeah.
chip talent in the state of Oregon. There's far less than Washington, and it's not even a comparison between Oregon and California. So, Cristobal definitely started, with that flock to LA, flock to Oregon. Like there was a movement. I forget what it's called, it was several years ago, but where you were bringing up guys like Kayvon Thibodeau or Justin Float and these big time recruits. And Dan Lanning has capitalized on that, and he's got a staff that recruits very well, and he and his staff care about recruiting a lot. You cannot recruit to Oregon if you don't want to. It doesn't just happen. And I'm sure plenty of SC fans think otherwise, that, oh, well, it's just Nike, it's just Oregon, everything. Go look at the recruiting rankings over the last 15 years as Oregon has been a nationally relevant program. They are not in the top 10 very often, but now that is the expectation. And it's because of what Lanning has done since he got there, the staff he's put together, and the emphasis that they place on recruiting.
Um, as far as NIL and Nike, we'll just throw it out there because everybody thinks, I mean, it's all Nike, but I think you guys are getting players because of the culture and what Dan is doing there. But you talk about this the whole NIL thing, because I think it seems like you can kind of tell who has it together, doesn't have it together, who is up and down. I mean, like, how does that work with the Ducks there?
Yeah, I mean, the NIL collective is certainly one of the best in all of college football. If NIL were not allowed, Dan Lanning and the Ducks would still be recruiting at an insanely high level. And I think the way that I view it is it's an aspect of it. It is not the primary feature. It can be a feature, but if you talk to recruiting analysts and experts, and I talk to one almost every week on my show, they'll say, look, you will find the occasional kid in the portal or from the high school ranks who's just looking for the biggest NIL deal. That will happen. That is no more than 10% of kids. For everybody else, it is a factor. It is another variable to add into the equation, but everything else still fits as well. Do I like the coaching staff? Do I like the location? Can my family watch me play? Are we playing in a big conference? Or are there going to be opportunities for me to actually play here? Can I get to the NFL? What are my goals? Like everything about that is still true in recruiting, and NIL is now another variable that gets thrown into the mix. And Oregon's very good. They're very committed because they want to be able to bring in the best talent that they can to go and get that first football national championship. So I think that for the Ducks, it's not only not a hindrance, it's certainly a benefit. I do not think that it is the only reason they succeed. And I think Cristobal was proof positive of that. NIL wasn't legal in 2021. Oregon had the sixth best recruiting class in the country. And I think that Oregon's recruiting stays where it is at because of their commitment to NIL. It's not where it is at because of NIL.
Yeah, no question about it. Before I get to Dylan Gabriel, I think that was good. That's the point I make to USC fans too. Is that like it's not like it was just like you guys didn't recruit. You guys have been recruiting for a long period of time. So, well, we'll have to see about that part of it as well because it's been continued success for a while now. Is it the national championship is kind of escapes kind of goes through your hands a little bit here and there? How is that? Does it drive that staff even more so? Because I thought I thought for sure you guys would split Washington and maybe get into the playoff. Lost both times. Really, I mean, by combined 6 points. I thought maybe you could have went forward a little bit too many times for two in the first matchup. What is the feeling around the program about that elusive the elusive championship because it's hard to do, but obviously, it's the goal.
Yeah, no, it is goal number one, and it's a goal that Oregon can reach in 2024, and it is going to annually be an expectation to compete for, not an expectation to win it necessarily, but certainly Oregon has everything they need, head coach and resources and support and whatnot. They've got everything they need to go and do it. They just have to go out and do it. And it's incredibly, incredibly hard, as you know, and any college football fan should know. And certainly last year, yeah, Oregon fans were, if Oregon had beaten Washington, the Pac 12 title game, they're in the playoff, and maybe they play Michigan for a national championship. Maybe they lose to Alabama or no, if they'd gotten in, they would have played, I think, Texas. It would have been Michigan, Oregon, Texas. No, yeah, it would have been Bama because they won. I don't know. Anyway, if Oregon had gotten into that position, who knows what happens? But certainly that was a national championship caliber team, and they just ran into a better one. Washington was just a little bit better, and that played out twice, unfortunately for the Ducks, and it's to Oregon's most bitter rival, and that certainly stings pretty hard, like really, really hard. Three straight losses to the Huskies by 3 points. And Kalen DeBoer's not there anymore, but they've got a good head coach in Jed Fish. So, for Oregon, that was a really, really good swing at winning a national championship. And sometimes you make your best swing and you've got a team that can do it and you just come up short. I think about it in the context of the Major League Baseball playoffs all the time. How many
Yeah.
teams that if something just goes a little bit differently, if one pitcher has a better day, if one guy gets a clutch hit, does that team go on to win? Like you just don't know these things. We hype them up and talk about them all off season, and then the season arrives, and you just don't always get the chips to fall the way you need them to. And that's just the way it went for Oregon. They got outcoached and outplayed by just a little bit a couple of times. I think it was really encouraging though in landing second year to be at that level because it showcased not just to the country, but to Oregon fans and players like this guy can do it. This guy can absolutely do it. There's a great quote from Jerry Allen, longtime radio voice of Oregon football. He was on the call for the iconic pick back in 1994. I think that was with Kenny Wheaton against Washington. And, he's getting up there in age. And he actually, when Cristobal left, he said on a podcast that he considered retiring. And he's getting older. Like it could have made sense. But once he met Lanning and got to know him, he said, "No, I'm not retiring. I think you're going to win a national championship with this guy." And I know for a fact that retirement consideration was very real, but he saw that level of what Lanning can bring to the table from a recruiting and coaching standpoint, and thinks that he can get there. And I think Lanning can get there. And it's just a matter of having everything come together in that one magical season. Hopefully, it's this year, but if not, I don't think that it's Oregon's last chance for a long time or anything. I think Oregon is building something very sustainable and successful.
So as far as Don Gabriel, some like him more than others. What are your thoughts about him as a player? How does he compare to Bo Nix? I like Bo Nix more than most people. I got so much. We had a quarterback show because I thought the Raiders would actually take a quarterback in the first round, but I must be stupid. So we went through and the top six quarterbacks we broke them down. I like Nix. What were your thoughts about Gabriel and the comparison to Nix, and why do people give Oregon so much shit about their quarterbacks? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, I mean, it depends on what context the flack is coming for Oregon quarterbacks. They certainly had a hit and miss track record in the NFL. Mariota's career was marred by injuries, an inconsistent deep ball, and a lack of progression amidst coaching turnover. Joey Harrington didn't work out for the Lions. Justin Herbert is someone who the Chargers would not give up for literally anybody except Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. And even then, I don't even know if they'd give him up for those guys. So, I think Oregon quarterbacks are, following an NFL trajectory that's at least similar to any other school. Like you can find quarterbacks that work from this school, quarterbacks that don't work from that school. But in the college ranks, I like Dylan Gabriel. I think he's good. One of the top transfer quarterbacks available, highest graded returning quarterback according to Pro Football Focus, and I don't think he's Bo Nix. I don't think Oregon needs him to be Bo Nix either. And I take some flack from Oregon fans for this because it comes off as Dylan Gabriel hate. But I'm just sitting here going, look, Oregon has made 2 national title games in the last, what are we, 15, 16 years, whatever it is. One of those times they had a Heisman winning quarterback in Marcus Mariota. Last year they had a national championship caliber team, but didn't quite get there with a Heisman finalist in Bo Nix, who would have won the Heisman had Oregon beaten Washington in the Pac-12 title game. And then the other time that they were really at that level, they had Justin Herbert there, but his college numbers weren't anything crazy, but they came up short against ASU in 2019. But then the year they played for a national championship for the first time, they had Darren Thomas as their quarterback. And Darren Thomas wasn't, well, I love Darren Thomas. Good football player, good quarterback. Just showed up and executed the offense. He was never sniffing a Heisman or anything like that. So I don't think it's a requirement that you have a Heisman capable quarterback in order to reach the national championship game if you're Oregon. And Dylan Gabriel is certainly good enough to get you to the national title game. That's what I feel. The rest of the team has to be probably a little bit better than last year because Bo Nix was better and did more than Gabriel will be able to do for this team. But this is not a massive drop off. You're going from the most experienced quarterback in the history of college football to a guy who this year probably sets the record, assuming he stays healthy, for the most starts in college football history. So I like him. I think he's solid. I think he fits the offense well. RPOs, quick hitters, and then stretch the ball down the field every now and then. But Gabriel's run plenty of RPO. He's got some mobility, and I think that can factor in well to Oregon's offense. So I think they've got what they need at the quarterback position for Oregon to go and compete for a Big Ten and a national championship.
You mentioned a little bit 2023 to 2024. What's the biggest difference between those two teams? Because I think that's going to be the question. Like how do they compare? Because I did really think that I really thought that Oregon was gonna like maybe play Michigan or play Ohio State for the national championship last year.
Yeah, and I think last year's team, if you go position group by position group, running backs, I think you're going to have the same production. Receivers, the same. Tight ends, literally the same top 3 guys. Offensive line might have a slight drop off, but not much. You return 4 starters from a year ago, and you bring in a 6th-year veteran in Matthew Bedford from Indiana. I think the biggest difference from last year is the way they've bulked up the defensive line, and they improved on that unit significantly from Lanning's first to second year, where they could not get pressure. They had a historically bad year rushing the quarterback in 2022. They got way better in 2023. And I think they're going to be even better in 2024 because last year you had a trio of true freshmen who were rotating in at the edge or jack linebacker position, who are now going to be true sophomores and have got a full season under their belts, and they all did really well. You lose Brandon Dorlus to the NFL, that's a loss. But you bring in Derek Harmon from Michigan State and Jamari Caldwell from Houston, both all-conference caliber players, and you've got an insane amount of depth of blue-chip talent on the roster at that position. You have Jordan Birch, who returns. You have Jeff Bossa back at linebacker, who returns. I think the secondary will be better than it was last year, and that was one of the weaknesses for the Oregon defense. So I think a lot of it translates over to being a very similar product to what Oregon put on the field in 2023, and it's why I have such high hopes for them this year.
Let's switch over to the NFL right now, and Bo Nix goes to Denver. How do you feel like he fits in?
Love
as
it.
a rival, as a rival for the Raiders. And then you can just jump right into JPJ because he's gonna be anchoring that interior line for the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have plenty of thoughts on JPJ, but we'll start with Bo. And he went to the perfect spot. I mean, I did a segment on my show a while back saying that Bo Nix to the Denver Broncos is a perfect fit, and it is a perfect fit because Bo Nix is at his best a facilitator, and I think that can have a negative connotation. But when you watch him play quarterback in 2023, the reason he set the NCAA completion percentage record is because he understands the offense so incredibly well, and he just looked at the defense, said, all right, they're going to be in this coverage. The ball needs to go here at this time. And corners didn't always have a chance. You didn't have a chance to make a break on a ball because Bo's throwing it before the receiver is even chopping his feet sometimes to, turn around and catch the ball. And I think that was one of his strongest elements a year ago. And you go to a Sean Payton offense that is not trying to stretch the ball vertically all the time. They're trying to, scheme plays to get receivers open and hey, it's this read or this read, and the ball's supposed to go here and want it to go there. And Bo Nix can ad lib. He can make plays on his own, but he doesn't need to. And that's why he was so much better at Oregon. He wasn't having to do that all the time. And I think Kenny Dillingham and Will Stein, his offensive coordinators with the Ducks, really got that out of him and made him into a first round draft selection by the Broncos. And people might have said it to reach. I understand, but if you're the Broncos, I don't think you can afford to wait because Bo Nix was not going to make it out of the first round. It's just that's just where the NFL is at. The quarterback inflation is just out of control. So if you want to get a quarterback, that's what you needed to do.
Yeah, I mean, you want to get a quarterback, you got to pay the price because
Yep.
we were screaming for the Raiders to get a quarterback, and everybody and their grandmother were telling me and my crew on my show that Penix would be there at 44, and I'm like, okay, dude, okay,
No, no.
yeah, I was like,
No, I didn't think he was going to Atlanta.
but I mean,
That
I think
that
he's going
that
to Atlanta, but he wasn't going to get out. He wasn't going to get out in the first round, or
no.
even the or even the top 10. So that was ridiculous there. But yeah, I do like Nick's. I do think his ability to move to to accurate, can get the ball down the field when you ask him to, and then also get the ball out on time, and he can move. He had
Yeah.
a lot of rushing touchdowns when he was with the
Well, and
Oregon
he's
Ducks.
got, I think, a better arm than people give him credit for because they think about Bo Nix and they say he's captain check down. It's all dink and dunk sort of stuff. And when you watch the way he threw the football last year, his ball placement on those short to intermediate throws is really good. And Sean Payton schemes up a lot of those. So I think that is just such a perfect fit. And of course, he's got his guy Troy Franklin on the perimeter because he somewhat inexplicably fell all the way to the fourth round. And I think that is a steal. I think Franklin was, borderline end of the first, but probably a second round pick. And to get him in the fourth, I think is great value there. And of course, they've got great chemistry. So I'm excited to watch that. But as for the Raiders, you're gonna love this guy, Jackson Powers Johnson. You're gonna love him as a human. You're gonna love him as a personality. You're gonna love him as a football player. He is a bona fide rock star, no matter which way you slice it. I mean, he will do anything and everything that is asked of him and needed of him to help the team win. And he's just such a joy to watch. His combination of strength with his athleticism and football IQ is just uncanny. This guy won the Remington Award for the best center in college football last year for a reason, and it's because he wholeheartedly deserved it. I was so impressed. And last year was his first playing center. He'd been a guard before that, and his freshman year in 2021, he was actually switching back and forth between offensive line and defensive tackle. So he rose up the ranks very fast. And I mean, he mauls people in the run game. He does not allow pressures. You can pull him on the perimeter. He's a crazy good athlete. He's the whole package. Guard, center, guard. He can play any of those spots. He's played right guard and center the most. And you put him at either of those spots, I'm sure he could learn left guard just fine. But everything that you need to be a great NFL offensive lineman, JPJ has got his technique and power is just absolutely exquisite, and I could not be. I'm frankly a little bit higher on JPJ's NFL prospects than Bo Nix, and I think Bo Nix can be a good NFL quarterback. I think JPJ can be great.
All right, Ray Nation. So we heard that one from somebody who saw every single snap. I saw every single snap too. So, but but you really saw every single snap of him, and he really is going to be a guy. I think he's also quickly endeared himself to Raider Nation. His first interview during rookie camp was actually pretty intense. You can see people getting behind
No,
him.
everyone's gonna like that guy. He's got a burger named after him at some burger shop somewhere in Oregon, and it has like mac and cheese and brisket and like also
See,
it's just the most offensive line burger that has ever offensive lined, and it's
yeah.
fantastic.
Okay, maybe they'll serve that at Allegiant. Coming up,
They
they're
should.
coming
They
this year.
should.
So, all right, brother. Take care, man. You can catch if you want to hear some duck stuff, and if you can, you can go ahead and go to with the Locked On Ducks. You do Locked On College Football too as well.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
That's the other show that I do, and it is a good time. Biggest stories in the
Yeah,
greatest sport on planet Earth.
exactly. So Spencer does everything. So definitely check him out as well too. All right, brother. Take care.
Thanks, Wayne.